yourself some more room, which would help. If you could shoot down this way, and then put your backdrop up a couple feet behind where you put your tables and stuff.
So you mean, like, put the backdrop, just hang it back
Yeah,
there?
because part of what makes images work and have some interest is depth.
Yeah.
So if the background is physically close to you, it's hard to generate depth. Even if you have good lighting, and sometimes it can get some muddy.
Yeah.
But this also works, if you just design it, and this is like, this is the design you have, and this is the design you like, then
Right.
it works just as fine. But depth is one of those things that, like,
You can't.
that's what people are looking for. Like it's just a flat image, like art.
Well,
So
especially,
you're trying
yeah.
to create depth. Yeah.
That's what, like, I went to the Barnes Foundation recently.
Oh, nice. That's a good one.
It was the first time I went, and I went to see a friend just dance there, and they let us, roam the building a little bit. And yeah, some of the more impressive paintings are the ones, like, it was weird because some of them were drawn pretty rudimentary, right? Like,
Right.
but they were hung up in that area because of the complexity that they put not only into the texture, right. but into the amount of depth that they drew into the painting.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine, it probably translates.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, like our first, obviously humans have had experience with light, but the only experience we have with light are daylight and fire.
Yeah.
There's no other light that exists, or has exist naturally. Those are the only two.
Daylight and fire.
And so the first kind of implementations of people manipulating light is through art. So by the time we get now to, like, where we have all these light sources and we, like, physically manipulate them to tell stories for filmmaking, the origination of that is in art.
Yeah.
That's like the first stepping stone for us to be like, oh, like, what are the properties of, like, conjuring light? Because we really hadn't, as humans, we haven't really done it until 30 maybe.
Yeah, the 1930s. It's actually, have you ever heard of The Doors of Perception by Aldous Huxley? It's
is that a book?
Yeah.
I know he wrote Brave New World.
Yes, right. So he wrote another book after Brave New World called Doors of Perception, and it's more of a study on, like, his experience with peyote. But in the back half of the book, he includes these two essays, and one of them is about the artificial manipulation of light, right? So he was talking about kind of the grandeur of theater, right? And how theater was experienced back in the day, and relating that to, say, the Louvre. How do you use that? The Louvre.
The Louvre. Oh yeah,
the Louvre.
In France. Yeah.
Yeah, in France. He's like, that nowadays we are able to see paintings and light and these, like, statues in a different way than they were seen. Like, you had to go during a specific time of day.
Yeah.
To catch that properly.
Sure. Yeah.
And so we experience that art in a different sense than they experienced, than it was ever meant to be experienced.
Pretty crazy. Yeah. It's pretty crazy. Yeah, like, they did these things and, like, okay, but we can only look at it at 5 p.m. because there would be enough light. But now it's like, we could look at it under flashlight and it might look totally different.
Yeah. Did you watch The Brutalist?
No, I have not.
Okay.
Yeah, I've heard good things about it.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a specific thing that he did to build a building where only during a specific time of day it has a light that comes down in the shape of a cross.
Oh wow, how about that?
In the building. Yeah. So
it's incredible stuff, really.
Yeah.
When you get, like, to that level of, like, we can do these things. Like, we could, if we're gonna, it's a film about architecture, so if we can find a space or build a space that does this very thematic lighting cue that the DP's trying to get, that's like, it's incredible next level storytelling.
Storytelling, and, like, I do enjoy. It's a pretty modern movie. It's 1900s.
Right.
So, like, the fact that they're still trying to conjure and use natural light in a modern building. Is a good dichotomy. I like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And there's lots of architects too who, like, that became, again, it's a light that we know will be there. It's a light that everybody's familiar with. And so it renders everything beautifully because we're supposed to see it. It's very, early LEDs, like, were weird to look at. Like, they had to spend a lot of time revolutionizing the tech to get to a point that they didn't cast weird spectrums of light that we, are odd to us.
Yeah.
So, like, good LEDs are still very expensive for that reason, that they render color
more
beautifully.
naturally.
Yeah. and they try to. There's a few ways like we can measure this, and one of them is SSI, which is Spectral Similarity Index.
Okay.
And for a long time, LEDs would score really good on CRI, which is a very crude way of trying to put a number to the way light renders skin tones,
Okay.
more or less. So high CRI is faithful recreation under that light.
Okay.
But SSI, nobody could get that score high enough to look like. And so I'll have to backtrack a little bit. SSI is trying to recreate the the s- the spectral similarity between one light and another.
Mm.
So tungsten is a beautiful, first generation light that like it was the first thing we created, and we're very familiar with it. We've seen it in movies and TV shows for 100 years. And then LEDs were trying to create something similar. They would score like 71 would be like adequate for a long time.
Okay.
Whereas
So
like
you said tungsten? Is that
yeah,
what it's called?
yeah.
What would be an example of like a tungsten? Like one of those old lamps?
Yep, they're hot lamps. So it's
that look really yellow?
Yep.
Okay.
They're hot lamps. So they heat up. So
Yeah.
it's a light created by heat.
Okay.
And so tungsten.
What did they score on the?
So if they. So
Is that what you're
SSI is
comparing
comparing
it
to there.
to
So
that? Okay.
technically tungsten would be 100, right?
100.
So
Right,
then they were
right.
like, it was 71% of the spectral
Sure.
would be a good score.
Yeah.
But now we're starting to see some LEDs get up to like 80, 85.
Okay.
And so those ones, they look like tungsten. And now a lot of us in the LED world, like, really excited about that because we're going to be in a spot that like
Oof.
allows us to have great light that we were chasing basically for a long time.
Yeah.
Because there's still there is a special allure, there's a special kind of characteristic to tungsten light that most of us young guys aren't using because there's more danger. Like they get hot.
Okay.
And they draw significantly more power.
Yeah.
So if you're working inside small spaces, if you're working inside like on household circuits, like you could have maybe one or two bright lamps on one circuit because they're drawing 1,000, 2,000 watts. Whereas like LEDs, you could have 6 or 7, and they're cheaper, they're easier to use, they don't generate as much heat. So people who are acting have, a moderate climate to perform in instead of, if you, movies with Marilyn Monroe, they would blast her with hundreds of thousands watts of electricity, and like it's hot, like really hot.
Yeah, heat lamp.
And yeah, so it's we're definitely in a golden age.
It kind of sounds similar to the idea of comparing the aesthetic of like, and maybe it's not there yet because, film to digital, right? Where it's like, people nowadays, some people nowadays want to, use film because it feels more authentic and has a certain feel to it when you're watching it. And same with, it sounds like these old lights, but it doesn't sound, what I've heard is, especially from some newer filmmakers, is that digital, you can do almost the exact same thing. Like you can make it seem like film.
Yeah.
And there really isn't that big of a difference. But, kind of like you're saying about these old lights, is there's something about them that seems, it feels more authentic.
There is. And most of it is really a built-in association that like you and I passively, subconsciously have been digesting material when we were kids of stuff only exclusively shot film and only exclusively lit in tungsten. So we have this like, it might be arbitrary. It might not mean anything, but it means something to us subconsciously because we literally, it's the only experience we had.
Yeah.
So then as things start to change, a lot of the old guys are like, oh, digital's too clean, it's too this.
Yeah.
But a lot of the young guys are like, either they don't care or they're not seeing it or they're raised on only digital animation. So their perception of visual media is different.
Yeah.
Than
or
ours
they don't
was.
have enough money.
Right. Or something like, it's like
constrained by budget.
Yeah. It is an interesting conversation. And like film, part of the allure is that like it's a physical medium. Like there's actually like a chemical process that like, it's still very tangible.
Yeah.
Digital as well. I mean, light falls onto sensors and these sensors are still physical.
Yeah.
But the final product does lack like that organic, actual kind of, there's a process there.
Right.
And it goes through a few stages and it's been refined over 80 years and digital just moves so fast that we have it at a good spot, but we don't know the extent of it either.
Right.
We're still in the process of figuring out like, how does it work? And like the movie The Holdovers,
Yeah.
movie shot digital that they put a lot of work in to make it look like film. And yeah, 99% of people are tricked. They're like, oh, this was shot
Right.
film.
Yeah.
And most people, even people who work in the industry, would probably struggle to decipher the difference.
Yeah, I
'Cause
think
there
I don't
is,
know if
yeah.
it was Scorsese, but it was like somebody on that level that was like just shoot digital.
Yeah, I
He was
mean,
like it was
there's,
really not that
yeah.
big of a difference. But we kind of just jumped into it. Ladies and gents, welcome back to Articulate. Today we got Maxwell Collins,
Hmm.
DP. That's
Yeah.
like the whole Instagram name is just like your name.
Yep, it is. Yep.
It makes it very easy.
Yeah, at one point I did like a rebrand because, I mean, social media is important.
Yeah,
And
unfortunately.
good Lord, it's a drag and a
Yeah.
drug in some regards, but like,
Drag and a drug. I like
yeah,
that.
it became really important to like actually put myself out there as what I wanted to do, consolidate like even just like my feed and stuff too.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
you know,
Right.
like if you're on personal account just watching cat videos, like
Yeah.
the programs, like algorithms are really good,
Yeah.
like scary good.
Right.
And so they refine this. If you're watching cat videos, they'll give you more and more.
It's
So I was like,
great.
I want only film stuff. I want only media.
Oh.
Like, so I would only engage with that. And now my stuff is very, very disciplined.
Okay.
So I don't, when I'm on there, it
Training
actually
your
feels.
algorithm instead of your algorithm training you.
And then so when I
It's
post,
important.
it's also finding stuff for me
Right.
in terms of going. So I was able to kind of like grow and make that work, which I'd never done before.
Yeah, no, see, I only want cat videos. Like that's all.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
all I want.
yeah, then you should
'Cause
just make a video. You should make an account that's like only cat stuff,
Only
and
cat
then
stuff.
post only cat stuff, and you would have a really successful cat account.
Dude, I mean, well, see, but yeah, that's. I'm not trying to get big with cat stuff.
Yeah,
All
yeah, yeah.
right? No, I get it though. Like that's what I really have trained my algorithm to do. But not to get too far off topic.
Yeah.
But it's like I agree. That's why I have the podcast account and then I have my personal account. So that way,
That's exactly what you should do.
yeah, with
Yeah.
the podcast account, I can try to keep it business. And
Mhm.
also, I was doing stand up for like 2 years, and
Mhm.
I was just getting flooded with stand up clips. And most clips that are stand up clips nowadays are
Right.
really not like. I've heard comics that are like 10 years in talking about like they're posting clips like within the first 2 years. Like if I would have done that, I would never have gotten big. People
Right.
would have seen me at my worst. And
Yeah.
so it's just an interesting, like you said, you got to train the algorithm instead of letting the algorithm train you.
Yeah. Take some control over it. Yeah.
Right, but bringing it back to film. So, have you ever shot on film?
Mhm.
And two, like, have you ever wanted to, and why?
I have shot film. I've shot film a few times. I went to film school, and so when we were in film school, we had a semester where we shot only 16 mil.
Oh
It
wow,
was only black and white, and it's a process. I mean, we were all digital kids of the digital age
right?
doing it, but we shot. We loaded the film cartridges, shot film, metered. Did pretty much all the things you learn conventionally,
Yeah.
and then developed. Well, actually, we didn't develop. We cut on an old cutting table, though. So
Did they stress the importance of learning this process, just knowing it
Yeah.
because of?
Yeah, it's
Like-
important. I mean, it is important because it's the foundations. I mean, it's like if you want to be an artist and you just skip over like pencil drawing, like
Right.
that would be one of the first things you learn. And I think the foundations of there's a time in filmmaking where we didn't have all the digital tools that we have now that a lot of us rely on because they're really intuitive and they're as good as they used to be. But having the skill to like walk into a room and understand light levels and contrast ratios is like extremely important.
Oh yeah.
And being able to use a light meter, I think, is really important as well because it is like the raw nature of the light instead of like getting a digital camera, looking at the digital frame, be like, and working from that capacity instead of like going into the space and feeling the direction of light, feeling the intensity of different, where light's coming from, and how it kind of interacts with not only the subject but the objects in the room.
Yeah.
That's stuff I've learned post doing that.
Okay.
But now in retrospect, I'm like, oh yeah, I wish we had done more on film.
Oh yeah.
I wish it was drilled harder. I wish we spent a year on it. I wish because we would do it and a lot of us would underexpose. We would miss focus.
Right.
On the first
They
go
should've
around
given
because
you
it's
the light
hard.
lesson first.
Yeah.
Before getting you into the film stuff.
Yeah.
Would have wasted a little less money.
Right. Yeah. But the like shooting on film is hard.
Yeah.
Like it is genuinely hard without those tools. I mean, you have a physical camera in a box. You stick your eye up to it. You pull focus by feet. You have to measure the distance of the subject. So if you wanted to move the camera, if you wanted to move the subject and you want to pull focus, like this stuff it's a much more disciplined process to get
Yeah.
a working image. Whereas today, you just take a digital camera, slap it on a thing, and then autofocus.
Is it?
There's no discipline in that.
Yeah.
You know?
Is it that much different? Because like I went to. Have you ever heard of Ansel Adams? He's like
Hmm.
an old
Yeah, yeah,
photographer.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I went to. I just randomly stumbled into a museum of his stuff at one point and kind of
Hmm.
learned. About his process and
Yeah,
how a lot of the times you just had to eye it up too. Like sometimes you need a light meter,
yeah.
and just had to.
Well, his is experience. I mean,
Yeah.
he's we still to this day use something that he created. Um, I forget what it's. We know it as EL zone, but it's basically like there's these levels of exposure that he kind of
Mm,
graphed out and made tangible, and that's kind of what, like, to his eye, like he
yeah.
had that skill to kind of do that, and
Wow.
that's purely from experience.
Right.
But not only experience of shooting, but experience of developing, experience of
Mm,
the final print, like
mm-hmm.
the whole process. That he's like, yeah, if I'm out here middle of the day and I'm shooting, and the sun's out and I can see everything, I'm gonna shoot, 1/500th f/16 and I would be good.
Yeah.
Or if
So
I wanted to darken that, I would change one of my settings and just darken the image. And but he would know what that would look like, and it's the same process for us too. Like
yeah.
I know if I want to shoot an image a little darker in terms of the negative,
Mm-hmm.
that I would understand where I have some play, where I have some latitude coming back.
Yeah.
Same kind of process. It just looks different. But
Yeah.
that's that.
Well,
Adams is like the
the
forefather, or like
goat.
the first to do it, or something like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, he's mostly photography. Well, he's only
Well, and that's
photography.
what I was
But
gonna ask is so, what is the difference or what more do you have to take into account as opposed to, a still photograph with
mm,
film?
yeah, well, it's a lot. I mean,
It's a
a
lot.
photo's worth. It's like a
A
photo's
thousand
worth.
words.
It speaks a
A
thousand
thousand
words.
words, right?
Um,
Film is
Film, like, it's 1,000 images per
square
word. Yeah,
cubed. Yeah.
it's like the inverse of that. And so it's yeah. I mean, most of it's just telling a story. I think
Mm,
like photography tells a story in a frame,
mm-hmm.
and films tell a story in shots and angles and characters, and um, it's a strange, maybe a strange blend between photography and theater,
Mm,
and being
yeah.
able to like go into the world with essentially a consciousness in the camera, and then trying to tell the story through that consciousness with
Yeah.
the other 80 aspects of film, that sound and production design.
So,
um,
what do you gravitate towards? I mean, I assume you have, there's a basic foundation of what you have to know
mhm.
and what you have to focus on within, being a cinematographer or a
Sure.
DP. Um, but there's also aspects that you get to stylistically focus on,
Hmm.
right? So, what would you say you tend to put more importance on and lean into?
I mean, definitely telling the story and collaborating with the director,
Okay,
because like film is a team sport,
right.
like through and through. Like
Oh my
there's
God, so
multiple
much.
people who are really, really skilled at what they do,
Mm-hmm.
but what they do needs to abide by the entity that's telling the story, which is effectively the director. So if the director has a certain vision or a certain story they're trying to tell, it's important that all the key personnel who are serving this person in their story
Mm-hmm.
are faithfully trying to put their skills and their network like into this project.
Right.
um, and that can look different for everybody, but like for the DP, directors might have certain shots that they're trying to get, and so you're like, okay, yeah, we can get these shots, but it's up to you to decide how it's going to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's also up to you to get that crew together and make
Right.
sure that that crew has the resources they need, the
Mm-hmm.
time they need, and they can you know, get the image to where you want it to, so that it serves your vision for how the story should look and feel,
Mm-hmm.
while also serving the director's, desire for these shots to be done in this edit, so that the scene plays out this way, so the audience has this reaction to this point in the story.
Yeah.
Um,
So it's all about kind of serving the intent.
yeah, you have
Right.
to. I mean, that's the whole reason all of it gets put together. It's like, we want to tell this story in an hour and 45 minutes, and we only have 15 scenes to do it,
Yeah.
and each one's going to be 10 minutes long or whatever. Like, it's very finite in that regard, that like
Yeah.
you have to get it all to work in there. And so the artistry comes in like creativity and how you
Mm-hmm.
get to that end goal,
Mm-hmm.
because there's different ways to be creative for each of those positions.
Yeah.
Gaffers can be creative as heads of the lighting department. Grips can be creative in terms of building rigs and getting cameras into places that maybe they shouldn't be, or nobody
Yeah.
thought they could go, and
Yeah.
they can
Yeah.
get them in there. And
That's true.
same with production designers. Like, how do you design a space,
Yeah.
and how does that, how do you be creative with that? And there's also an argument to be made about creative with money. Like, we want to
True.
do this, but we have not enough money. Can you make it work? It's like, okay, well,
Yeah.
maybe I can figure it out.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest realizations for me as like, I always tended towards the arts when I was
hmm
growing up,
Right.
and it always felt like there was a distinct difference between, my hobbies and passions versus the stuff that we were made to study and versus the path that you kind of have to go on to make money through, I was a hospitality major, but
hmm
like I started out as a finance major and then a business major type of thing.
Yeah.
And so in those paths and, up until I was probably 21, 22, that's when I started being like, oh wow, you really have to, like, even being a manager, right, or
hmm
the head of a company. There's a lot of creative decisions. It's almost like managing a team, right, like a
Right.
football team, where it's like you can do it in the most basic format, and there is a tried and true way of
Yeah.
doing it. But then again, is where's your style, and how do you get an advantage, in the form of a team, right?
Right.
But again, creatively is like, okay, there's a technical way to rig this light,
hmm
but it's like, okay, how can we do it on this budget and
Yeah.
make it look a little bit more gritty or
Yeah.
something,
And like creativity is a funny word because a lot of people, it's like, oh, I'm not creative. I can't draw.
Mm,
I can't paint. I can't
yeah,
dance.
I
I
can't
can't
do any of that.
sing. Well, those creativity extends well beyond that. I mean, mechanics are extremely creative.
Yeah,
The artistry of machines and like solving problems, within an engine bay is also very creative.
yeah,
And creative also, just coming up with a different solution. Like if I had $100
true.
million to make a movie, yeah, very streamlined. I'm just going to go ahead and pay everybody who's very skilled what they're worth. They're going to get whatever they want. They're going to send me a bill and I'm going to put it to production company and fine. But then there's creativity in solving, budget gaps. Like we
Mhm.
want to do this thing, but we only have this much money. We're not going to be able to do X, Y, and Z. So how can we get around that? Like that's also creativity.
Right.
And to your point of like other positions, other industries, like creative people will find solutions.
Hmm.
And that's just kind of what sets, that kind of thought process aside or yeah, above just a standard like, oh, but I only have to do it this way.
Right, right.
You know.
Instead of being kind of passive with it, it's
Yeah.
again, problem solving in a sense is the same as
Yeah,
being
yeah,
creative. It's the
exactly.
same
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. Creativity is problem solving to a
Yeah,
degree. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
Um,
No, that's cool. So, kind of bringing it back to film. First of all, is candlelight the best light?
um, it's I mean, daylight's the best light. I mean,
Daylight's the best light.
yeah,
Okay.
it is subjective. I mean, there's probably some people. I personally really like warmth, so I do like old tungsten lamps. I even debated at one point if I should just keep my entire vehicle just all tungsten and go
Mm.
back to that way. But yeah, daylight's the best.
When
It's,
did you like start getting into? Were you a painter or a drawer at
no, my
first?
mom was though.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
really? What
she
was she
was an
doing?
artist. Yeah,
She
yeah.
was.
She still is. She's
Okay.
still an artist, and she's
Uh,
an artist in many different forms. It's just the way her brain works, and I think it was passed to me, and I'm
mm.
trying to navigate that now as I get older, especially since I have a good support system that, she told me go to school, it doesn't matter about the cost, just go, 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 go. And that support has enabled me to get this far
Yeah.
and
So what does she
see
do?
my parents moved to Tennessee about 5 years ago now. Pretty much
Okay.
right in the middle of the pandemic, which everybody told them they were crazy for, but they made it work and they're very happy now. And so she has a full-time job now as um, a marketing director.
Okay.
Um, and she spent some time getting that degree and earning those skills. And now she's at a place she really likes. But she was an artist. Keep saying was, but she still is an
Yeah,
artist. It's
like
still
so what
very much what
kind?
she
Was
does.
she a
Paint,
painter? Okay,
paint,
she was.
drawing. Now she's starting a new business venture that's about organizing your life as a creative. So it's
Mm.
all like journals, journaling, organizing. You know,
Yeah, it's like
she
the
sees the
artist
world
way.
kind of uniquely, and so she's trying to like kind of package that up and bottle it, and like other people who think her way or you know can kind of dip into the system.
Yeah.
Still a work in progress, but it's her next venture, and it's pretty exciting.
And is that what the way that you feel that she passed down
Yeah, I
that
think
way
I'm a
of?
little bit. Well, maybe it's. maybe it's because it's my mom and it's like too linear and I can't see. I
Yeah.
might be people tell us we're very similar,
Okay.
but I like to think I'm a little bit more pragmatic or logistical. But now that I'm
Well,
saying that,
again,
I don't
is
think that's
your
true. I don't think that's true. I don't
is your dad pragmatic?
know. Yeah, my dad's very good with numbers,
Okay.
and
So again, it's like maybe, maybe you do take more from your mom in that sense,
I
but then
100% do.
yeah,
Yeah,
but then
yeah,
you have again some of that like your dad in you as well,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Yeah. No, they're definitely both there.
Right.
But I
And
definitely,
also again, it's like I don't know how old you are, but it's like you said,
yeah,
as it's
right.
very linear. As time unfolds, I might turn more into
Yeah, that's so like
loosey goosey.
that's happening. Yeah, it's like I'm
Yeah.
28 now, and my mom and I we work together. She brought me on to do video work at the place that she works at. So now we work very closely together, and like in a capacity we've never really worked together.
Mm.
Kind of as like co-equals or colleagues. Um, but I would go down there and say stuff, and then the boss would be like, "Yeah, your mom basically said this already." I was like, yeah, well, it's very similar in that regard.
For what job?
So they are the guy who started it's a very smart man. He's a good businessman, and he started a wood staining service company. So they basically would stain outdoor fences, decks, pergolas.
Mm.
You name it. If it's wood outside, they stain it. And so he had started doing that, and then developed his own stain, and it's an oil-based stain that is really quite good at what it does. And so he's been selling that, and that's been doing well. And so his service side and his staining side, and he's got a bunch of businesses he's trying to get off the ground.
Should we plug it?
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. It's
What's the company called?
it's there. I mean, stain and seal experts in Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay.
And
If
but
you're in Nashville,
yeah,
check
now
them
it's my mom did a good job of rebranding it in a way that makes sense for what what he wants to do,
Mhm.
because he wants to do lots of things in
Yeah.
wood staining, and it doesn't want to, it doesn't just because he had a or a service business that
Mhm.
goes out and stains things. He also wanted the product to sell to other people across the country,
Right.
but then also wants to pre-stain lumber
Oh wow.
and do all that, and then also wants to do another thing. And so my mom restructured the business so that it's this company called Restorative Industries, and all of
Mm.
those businesses exist under Restorative.
Oh
So
wow.
now Restorative is who I work for, basically. And so
Yeah.
I do a bunch of videos for
Okay.
all of those things, and it's a work in progress, and it's a lot, but
Well, so
we're
in a
chipping away
similar
at it.
sense, right? He's the director, and then your mom had to be like,
Correct.
come
Well,
in
it's
and be
all the
like,
same, really,
right,
when you
right,
think
yeah,
about it. It
yeah,
all
yeah,
ends up working the same way. I mean,
yeah,
that's the CEOs and directors are the same exact thing.
yeah.
It's the same thing.
Right.
There's no difference.
Yeah,
CEOs are also looking for a marketing director. They're looking for a sales manager. They're
right.
looking for
Yep.
customer service manager. And then these people have a skill set or an ability to hire people who can serve their function under the faithfulness of the brand or the company or the story that you're trying to tell.
Division, yeah.
Yeah, and again, that's kind of what I've learned as I got older too. And I have my own business, so I do a lot of stuff that isn't for art or for story or for filmmaking. It's I'm selling a product, or I'm
Right.
um, trying to tell an audience about this new course that this class offers, and it's all connected. It's all basically the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I agree. Which I think for me, as someone who didn't go to art school,
mhm.
right, and having that business oriented background, and then you know finding my way, dipping my toe into the pool of the film
Right.
industry, and feeling like I was going to be completely out of my depth is like, okay, there's a
No,
lot of parallels
yeah,
here.
and there's a lot of people too. Like I remember the first went to school, spent lots and lots of money to learn,
Yeah.
then left, and the first PA job I had on a movie in South Jersey, um, the kid that I was kind of working closely with just had a friend who worked in film, and he just started doing it.
Yeah.
So me and him were at the same position at the same time,
Yep.
and he spent nothing or whatever to get
Right.
there, and I spent a lot to get there, but we were doing the same thing. So very quickly I was like, oh, I see. I like it's so I know lots of people who got into film or
Mm.
into any industry
Yeah. So, what are
just
your thoughts
by
on the idea of a film school?
yeah. Probably the most frequent question I see
Yeah,
is that
of course. Should I go?
yeah, it's I think it's up to the individual.
Mm.
I very much like academia. I always did very well in school. I like the structure of school. I find a lot of value in classroom education, respecting educators.
The discipline.
Yeah, so I liked all that. So I was always probably going to go to college. Plus, my mom really made it important for me and my brother to go.
Sure.
And I don't regret it at all. It was a lot of money, and sometimes that's hard to swallow now that I'm out. And I'm like, oof, if I didn't have this large chunk of my income taken out, I could reinvest in my business. I could I could take loans out on really expensive stuff and maybe skip a few steps. But
Mm-hmm.
I also learned when I left that a lot of that wasn't as important as I thought it was.
Mm.
And there's this great debate about whether or not to go, and it's up to the person. Yeah, I
Yeah.
enjoyed it, and it's gonna be what you make it. And that's a lot of the problem I see
Mm-hmm.
is people go to school and then they're like, "This did nothing for me." I'm like, "Okay, but did you explore every internship opportunity? Did
Right.
you meet new people? Did you
Yeah.
how quickly did you realize that?" Because it's higher education. It shouldn't be about just going to school again and
Yeah.
getting a degree. That is for a long time in
Mm-hmm.
human history, the most elite form of education you could ever get. Like, we are very, very fortunate to have this level of education dispersed to this many people across the world, and especially in our country. And to be at that point, like, you should take that with a very, very, high level of respect. And
Right.
it is up to you. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the school will give you opportunities.
Yeah.
They will provide it. You want to find these things and you want to get yourself in there. And it wasn't until I was like a junior or senior, I was like, oh, I should have like been on every project I could have got my
Mm-hmm.
hands on. I should have been talking to everybody who was
Yeah.
here. Instead, I only did that when I was about to leave, and then I felt really bad that I didn't do all that when I
Take
could have. I
advantage.
could have met more
Right.
people. I could work more projects. I might have made better films when I was a senior because I would have had more experience.
Mm.
Instead, I was trying to teach myself online, which was really good. But then when it came to like translating it to physical stuff, I was like, how do I do this? Like, I don't actually, I didn't have any experience in like
Yeah.
doing it.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. I think you like you said it depends heavily on the individual, right?
yeah.
If you respond well to some authoritarian figure, right? Like,
Right.
not saying that all teachers are authoritarian figures, but like, that hierarchy, right?
Hmm.
And having people kind of show you the way and tell you what to do. Some people just want to do it themselves.
Sure.
You know what I
And
mean?
that's totally valid.
Yeah,
It's totally
it
valid.
is
Yeah.
very valid. But I do like what you're saying that I don't necessarily think that everybody understands, right? Is like you can go. It's like leading the horse to the water.
Right.
You can't make him drink,
That's
right?
exactly what it is.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like well, and part of that is especially when you are at whatever age, you're usually pretty young going
Right.
into
Correct.
film school, so you don't have that perspective yet to see the bigger picture and what these institutions provide.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think I do think that you still were probably able to benefit.
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah,
definitely
towards the
benefited.
end,
Yeah.
once you
Yeah.
did
Yeah. Yeah.
realize all that stuff, what you could get hooked up with, you know
Yeah.
what I mean, and how you could
Yeah.
develop the stuff that you learned yourself. And I imagine you were exposed to a lot more than you may
Yeah.
have
And
been if you did it yourself.
that's actually probably the biggest advantage. Is like, I grew up in South Jersey, and there was a running joke that like the local university was high school 2.0, which
Mm.
is true. I mean, a good percentage of the kids from my senior class would just go to a local university, stay close, and they wouldn't really be challenged in the world. The world's a really big place.
Yeah.
And so when I left and I went about 2 hours south to Maryland to school and met all these wonderful people. I was exposed to things that I never thought I would be exposed to, different people, different perspectives. And it was like, oh, wow, like this is actually really quite enjoyable. And especially somebody who enjoys education and different viewpoints. Like, I actually really enjoyed it. And I have a history minor. I had took a
Oh
ton
wow.
of history classes
Yeah.
and all sorts of different history classes, like the history of American women, which was very interesting.
Yeah.
History of the national parks, which was probably the most incredible course I've ever taken.
Really.
Yeah, and like it was a boring class taught by a boring guy, but I actually really enjoyed the content and
Yeah.
was like, I was, again, depends on the person. I was like over reading, I was over looking into things because I was enjoying it.
Yeah.
And that provided additional value for me than other people who were just like, oh my God, I got to go to class at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, that's how again, it's like being more of a an artistic oriented person going, I have to go to a finance class
Right.
or something. But then realizing, oh, there's so much importance in finance and like financial
Yeah.
literature,
Yeah, yeah.
So even though those it's like something that I wouldn't have opted to do on my own,
Hmm.
you have to take those things. So yeah, and it kind of comes back to like you were saying, is like they're not only people that you're exposed to
Right.
when you're going into an institution like this, but also just like courses. And I don't know if knew you were into history
Mm.
before going into
Oh
that.
yeah, I was always definitely into
Oh,
it. Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
cool.
And I'd taken a few early. The only reason I picked up the minors because I had so many I was taking for fun
Mm.
that it was like if I take 3 more my senior year, I could have a minor.
Oh,
So
okay.
I took like
Oh, wow.
history of American women, national parks, and history of Baltimore,
Oh,
which were
wow.
all very fun.
Yeah.
They're actually good books.
I'm sure. Did they
Um,
just watch The Wire in the history
yeah,
of
yeah, pretty
Baltimore?
much.
Yeah.
It's like Baltimore totally irrelevant until the wire came
Until The
around.
Wire
Yeah.
came out.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. But
Um,
in that school, did you is that kind of where I mean, did you always know you wanted to be a cinematographer?
no, not really. In high school I took just like an elective class that was it was a writing class, but it was about movies.
Okay.
And turns out I was able to write a lot about movies.
Okay.
And so about halfway through that class, we were watching Casablanca, and it dawned on me that like people got paid to go to Morocco and make this movie.
Yeah.
And I was like, I would like to do that.
Yeah,
And then so I
yeah.
started looking into it, and so that was junior year. Um, and so started dabbling in film schools, and it was really intimidating to go to a film school because I had
Yeah.
never made anything.
Mm,
So big schools like USC and NYU, I was like, oh, I'll never get in. And in retrospect, I wish I had tried. I didn't even try. I wish I had tried
yeah.
because the amount of money I spent, I might as well have just gone to a school that would really, really connect me
Yeah.
to filmmaking like that.
Mhm.
But in retrospect, I am glad I went to where I did and met the people I met.
Sure.
And learned what I did, and now I work in the capacity that I do because I actually would not have enjoyed like full fledged on filmmaking, like people who work on big movies and stuff.
Yeah.
It's actually not as fun as I think people would think it'd be.
Really? Why
Yeah.
not?
Partly like the work conditions are awful.
Okay.
Um, the world's changing so rapidly that like
Mhm.
when I would have gone in there, everybody was just you just basically get overworked, underpaid,
Mm,
to put it bluntly. Um, and then just the sheer volume of like a minimum, like what you can expect is 12 hours a day.
right.
So
Yeah.
not many jobs, in this country you work 12 hours like that.
Yeah.
12 hours, 30-minute break halfway through the day
Mhm.
and day after day. I do that maybe a project for 2 weeks. Maybe I have 1 week where I have 3 days like that. The alternative is like living in New York or LA and doing that every day.
Yeah.
And I'm not built for it. Like I'm just
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like this freedom. I like the ability to like actually go and shoot, where if I went to those cities, it'd be really, really competitive and I might not see that path until I was much older.
Mhm.
But now I can shoot. Yeah, I mean, sure, they're like low budget or no budget or for fun or whatever, but at least I can shoot and develop that skill. And maybe when I'm 35, I'm really, really good at it and I can try shopping around and trying to get in that way. Um,
Right. And then getting paid more for those 12-hour days too, with the experience that you have and the
yeah,
level that you are.
right.
And then that way you don't have, you could do those projects that are still 2 weeks to a couple months,
Yeah.
and then take some time off and not have to worry about
Yeah, I
like
find
getting a job
myself, having
immediately.
a little bit more freedom
Right.
than if I was in the cities, and it would be such a hustle culture, and I'm just not a big hustle culture person. I
Yeah. It's a
enjoy,
tough lesson to learn because a lot of the creative industries are a hustle culture, right?
yeah,
And so, I mean, that's what I did stand up for 2 years. And I'm like, y'all are going out 4 or 5 nights a week for, 7 hours. And I have a full-time job, you know what
yeah.
I mean? On top of that, it's like, how is your, like, again, even feeding into creativity, like, how am I supposed to be creative when I'm tired all the time? You know what
You're
I
right.
mean?
You need that time to like actually reflect and sit down and do something different, or like it's like burnout's very real, and there are some just absolute freaks who can just go go go, and like
Yeah.
it's not me.
Yeah, it's
So
not
I'm
me.
not going to like do that and then become a miserable person as a byproduct.
Yeah.
Even if I made twice as much, even if I worked on the projects I wanted to work on,
Yeah.
I don't think I would like the person I became, and I don't think I would like wherever it led me.
Right.
So I much more prefer the slower pace, which I don't know. Maybe in 5 years I'll
It's the
regret that,
the
but I
tortoise and
like
the
that.
hare, bro. You're
Yeah,
gonna you're the tortoise.
yeah, I'm very much just torturous. Yeah.
But that means you win. You win in the
At some point I'll win. Yeah,
maybe.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That was hilarious. Okay, so but when did your appreciation for cinematography deepen?
Probably like freshman year. I realized that I didn't want to direct
Okay.
like that. I think I would be a great director
Yeah.
if it was somebody else's idea.
Oh. Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
I could. I mean, I think that's kind of what I do now as a DP, especially with a lot of these kind of projects I get attached to at this point in my career. Is like I'm very good at making decisions, very good at translating words on paper to reality. Whether that's like,
Mm,
oh, we just need to get X, Y, and Z. We just need this much time. We just need to do this and that. Very like film savvy in that way,
yeah.
but like creating a story and a world and
Mm-hmm.
articulating that to others, not so much.
Yeah.
But once I
Interesting.
get a hold of something, then I'm really, really good at, or if I can manage just the image, which is something that comes to me very naturally,
Yeah.
very good at articulating that and getting
Right.
that out to people. Like, yeah, I'm just looking to do X, Y, and Z. Like,
Yeah.
what kind of resources do we have? How can we do this?
Interesting. So, yeah, the line between director and DP, obviously there's a lot of directors who are the DPs. Not a lot, but I know a
There are a
couple.
few. Yeah, there
Yeah,
are a
there are a
few.
few, but I mean, so we've both worked with Jonathan Phelps,
Mm.
and he helped, helped a lot with me with No Thoughts,
Yeah, yeah.
because No Thoughts was my first project, and directorially, I knew what I wanted the actors to look
Yeah.
like and sound like. I knew the story was character driven, so I knew what I wanted the
Hmm.
characters. But everything besides that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like actually making that a film
Yeah,
and like
actually
and
making that a film.
learning the language of film, which is a very important thing to do,
Yeah, yeah,
is
and since
hard.
yeah, it's super hard, and so he was so great at stepping in and stepping up to the plate, and I wonder how much of my directorial duties he actually just took on, uh,
Well, I
from
mean,
there. You know what I
me
mean?
and
And where's the
Jonathan,
line,
yeah, me and
right?
Jonathan are very similar, and I think we get along and work really well together in that regard. Because we've got a project coming up that we just had a discussion about the other day, and I did a film back in March that I had a similar type thing. I was working with a first time director, and yeah, just trying to like navigate. Like, okay, I know this much about making film. You have a story you're trying to tell. I want to tell it in my role how I'm
Yeah.
supposed to, but also I want to make sure that the whole piece is good. And so yeah, it's a lot, and it's like we should look to do this. We can do this. And there's a lot of like I keep saying we can do this to people
Mm-hmm.
because there's a million ways to do it, and that's where
Yeah.
a director really needs to like plant their feet and be like,
Make the
I'm trying
decisions.
to do this.
Right.
Because yeah, we could go into a room and we could shoot it literally a billion ways.
Yeah.
There's literally a billion ways to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You need to start making decisions about this and that so I can make my decisions. Because I could go in there and make decisions, but I might obliterate your story in the process in favor
Mm,
of what I'm trying to do.
right.
And that's where directors, especially first time ones, like sometimes can get run over
Mm-hmm.
because if you don't have that experience of like, oh, I know if I, very simple, if I shoot 3 shots, I have my wide shot and my 2 coverage pieces, the scene's covered, but am I really telling a story? Do I have the inserts? Do I have all the pieces that kind of elevate? Can I slow down time? Can I
Close
speed
ups.
time
Yeah.
up?
Yeah. Stuff like
Yeah,
that.
there's all those other elements of film language that need to also be thought of. And I like to think of directors as world builders.
Mm,
And that's why I'm not really that good at it because I can't do it to that level.
mm,
I can do that within lighting. I'm very good at building a world within lighting, whether that's placing practicals or if that's building, some sort of logic within the space for all this stuff to exist.
oh, interesting.
Very good at that, but like
Yeah.
world building as a whole between sound, between production design, between characters, between performance,
Yeah.
the overall pacing of the film and how it's going to be.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's too much or if I just don't, it doesn't come to me naturally.
Yeah.
Not like being a DP does.
Yeah, yeah. I think there is, you have to have some sort of affinity for it, right?
Hmm.
Like that's why I was a little shaky after my first, after doing that project with Jonathan.
Yeah.
Um, and then after getting into the editing room, which I found to be, exponentially, just so useful, like
Mm.
learning what you can do in post and how much the vision has
Right.
to
That's
shift.
that's part of that experience. Is like, oh,
Hmm.
I know I only need because there's a lot of times where I work with people and they're like overshooting and they're just shooting. I'm like, when are you ever gonna use like it
Yeah,
doesn't make sense. Like we're
right.
just shooting nonsense in my eyes. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
why would I have them set up lights? Why would I spend 30 minutes doing like
Yeah,
we could double down on another performance. Like what are we ever gonna cut to this strange shot on the floor looking up? It's like we're not gonna do that.
yeah, yeah,
And so
yeah.
when you have that experience of like making a film all the way through
Hmm.
like start pre-production, go to shoot, edit, post sound, post color,
Hmm.
and then shipping it off and letting people see it.
Yeah,
Once you do that a bunch of times, then you really start to like, oh, okay, I
yeah.
understand like where this can go and what this will look like, stuff like
Yeah,
that.
and
Yeah.
that's what I'm excited for because I have this new project that I've I'm basically like on the first. I mean, we're nailing down the script at this point,
Hmm.
but already it's the difference is black and white
Yeah.
between the thoughts that I have for the first one and
Right.
for this one.
Yeah.
Because like already I'm like, okay, I want camera movement here, but I want it to be still here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want this to be more, cinematic, and
Yep.
this to be a little bit more flat.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep. And that's
And
that's the language of film.
yeah,
I mean, like the way in which film is a language, and you have to people understand it, enjoy it more, I think.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
that's why we have like this blockbuster craze, and like there's no real language there.
yeah.
It's just flashy,
Here's the
this,
story.
that. There's very linear, yeah. But
Yeah.
like film, where there's a language that somebody on one end understands, and you're trying to decode it on the other end because you have some understanding of it. Is
Hmm.
part of the fun, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and sometimes you don't understand it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Sometimes you're just doing it because
And
it feels right,
yeah,
and then you allow the audience to try to figure it out. You
yeah,
know?
and that's what makes it unique and really interesting, and why it survived as long as it has survived. It's that
Yeah,
people
and it's still
know that.
relatively young as an art form.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
grand scheme of human history. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, it's less than
Compared to music and
music
photography
and
and
art, and
yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's super young.
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
still
yeah.
very much developing, and we're still seeing that. Like, you know,
Develop.
yeah, there's films that are coming out doing things that we never thought were possible, and
Mm,
now we've got new technology that is helping to advance this, and yeah, it's very much developing.
hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
and now that it's even attention spans are shortening, and short form media is a thing. Like, we don't know where that'll go.
yeah.
And
I don't want it to go anywhere.
well, that's probably what they said 15 years ago, and now
Yeah,
we're here, and we enjoy whatever it is that we
the
enjoy.
cat videos
Yeah, the cat
on
videos, and
Instagram.
um, but it's all changing. Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
and that's what I kind of enjoy about where I am. I can be kind of flexible, and like if I wanted to go down that route and chase something, I could. If I didn't want to do that, I don't have to either.
Yeah, you seem
Um,
like you're pretty well set up with, I don't know, like you say, I didn't even know that you had a business on your
yeah,
own on
yeah,
top of that, as well as working for, that bigger business that your mom works for.
yep.
And then you also do all this fun contract work
Yeah,
for
keeps
creative
me
projects.
kind of busy. It also allowed me to learn a lot,
Mm,
which was nice because I was learning business things. I was learning business relations,
right.
scaling a business, purchasing things, trying to buy bigger and bigger things,
Yeah.
um, cash flow, trying to stay afloat,
Yeah. Right.
pay, not only business debts down, but my own debts down.
Yeah.
Um, and there's times, especially now, it's like really scary. And you never know where work's going to come from.
Mm-hmm.
I've just been fortunate enough that it like keeps finding its way to me.
Right.
I would love to make twice as much,
Yeah.
but
Of
I
course.
think it's a process, and maybe someday I'll get there.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, also, we're only 28,
yeah,
right? So it's
yeah.
like,
Still plenty of time. Yeah,
yeah, Denzel Washington. This man once
yeah,
said the first part of your life is to learn, the second part of your life is to earn, and then the third part of your life is to return and share
yeah.
what you learn.
That's a really good way to put it. I
Yeah,
mean, like 28 now.
still in the
I
learning.
still have another 28 years,
Oh
and
yeah.
28 years after that, more
Ugh,
than likely.
don't
It's
don't
like
talk,
it's
don't
like
talk about how much
so
more we
much time.
have.
Yeah. So
That's a lot.
yeah.
So one thing I wanted to run by you is this idea that it comes across a lot in I'm a decently spiritual person,
Mm,
and one of the things that they ask you to focus on in meditation and in life is the silences, right?
mm-hmm.
How you thought has to come. It comes from no thought, right? And sound comes from silence.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be a vibration. And same way
Right.
with light,
Sure.
right? Light comes from the absence of light, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I was wondering how big of a part you considered that to be. It's how much you like to manipulate or play with that, like the absence of light in a shot.
Yeah, there was a point, I guess, when I was learning about everything, that somebody had said it's just painting with light.
Yeah.
And then kind of with, my experience with art, and, my mom being an artist, like I was like, oh, yeah, it really is, because you go into a room, turn off every light, it's black.
Yeah.
You look at your story, what do I need to see? Okay,
Yeah.
I need to see the character. So we light the character.
Yeah.
What does that look like? Is that heavy silhouette? What does the silhouette say about the story? Let's just say we need a little bit of detail on the face, so we just wrap a little 3/4 so we can see the backside, and we could see a little bit of the near side. And now I have an image that's mostly silhouette because it's still dark, but I have a character I can see.
Right.
What else do I need to see in this space?
Yeah.
I need to see that they're an architect. So let's put a light on their desk in the background.
Yeah.
Now the audience can see a character and they can see their workspace.
Wow.
What else do I need to see?
Mhm.
Well, I need to see the space. So let's put a low level of ambience in here. So we raise the ambience, and now we can see their room. We can see that it's very affluent. They might be very successful.
Yeah.
And so then you start piecing it together in that capacity. And it's like, oh yeah,
Wow.
it's very much just painting with light.
Yeah.
And you're very much trying to tell a story. And so I think, especially when I see a lot of like low budget stuff or young filmmakers, like I can tell when they just went into an environment and just shot as is, where a lot of what I'm trying to do is make sure that everything I do is very intentional, both
Right.
as a gaffer and as a DP. And like, if we don't want to see it, we shouldn't see it, or it shouldn't call attention to itself that the audience might think, oh, I need to like, that traffic cone I need to pay attention to.
Right.
Like, no, if the traffic cone's irrelevant to the story, we either paint it black so it's not, you don't see it, or we just take it out.
Or just take it out.
Yeah, it's
and
that
even
level
as
of
intricate
detail.
as like the emotion of the act of the character, right? It's like, how much do we need to read from that
Right.
person? You know what I mean? It's like, do we need to see their full facial expressions here? Like, how do we need to see the subtleties that's going on too?
Correct.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's kind of saying when it's a team thing. And so you have a director who has the vision. We have an architect in their space, and we're trying to do this thing.
Yeah.
Well, then you have, the dialect coach or the acting coach or whoever's doing that helps with the performance, as well as the director. But then the production designer's doing the same process I just described.
Yeah.
But mine was about painting with light, but they're trying to do something similar.
Right.
What level of tools do they have? Is the desk, a very rare like mahogany
what
wood
era?
that nobody can get? Like
Yeah.
they're having the same conversations that I'm having. It just looks different.
Yeah.
And when all those pieces come together to serve one thing,
Right.
you get a beautiful piece of filmmaking.
Piece of it. Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. Like, the collaboration is just like one of my favorites.
And it's also the hardest to do because
everybody has a different vision.
there's also a skill set thing. Like you want to be skilled enough.
True.
And you also want to be, you want your network to be strong enough that you can find these people. And you also want your portfolio to be strong enough that people will be like, oh, this will actually translate to a good final piece.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you can kind of brute force your way through by being just a really nice guy, or and people are like, oh, you're just a good time to be around, so like I'll help you this one time. But if you burn bridges on that project or you do a bad job, you will never be able to ask those people, especially if you're asking for free or low budget, you'll never be able to ask those people to come back again.
Right.
And so it's a very delicate balance of like trying to.
Well, and it's the industry is specific in that aspect, I think, because of the fact that a lot of these projects are passion projects, or because they are, not necessarily made with the intent to like sell.
Yeah,
and
there's a
stuff
very
like that.
it's weird, right?
Right.
That there's no promise of additional earnings.
Yeah.
It's not like we're if you're building a big apartment and you got a bunch of dudes that you're doing construction, where you're like, yeah, guys, when this is done, like we're all gonna get a cut of this. I'll give you a duplex and you can rent the other half out and you can make money or whatever. Filmmaking's like, yeah, I got this project. I have no money for it. I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna put it in a few festivals, but there's literally no promise that makes money. And we're still like clamoring for the opportunity. Like, oh, I'd love to shoot your project. I'd love to do this.
Right.
And there is some very strange. I think it's just the power of filmmaking or the power of being a storyteller, which I think all humans kind of like innately want to do.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like put into our DNA, into the way we experience life is through stories. It's just changing forms throughout time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very weird in that regard, isn't it? And like, ironically, when people come to me and they're like, "Oh man, like when we get this dude, I'll give you a cut of it." I'm like, I don't want a cut of it. I just want to make. I just want to do it. Like I don't want to do it. I'm not all that worried about that.
Yeah.
And obviously, some projects definitely want to get paid. I mean, I always want to get paid, right?
Right,
I mean,
right,
I'm not saying that I want to work for free all the time, but sometimes just making the film actually holds a lot of weight.
Yeah.
Especially when the people I want to collaborate with, I would actually enjoy. Scope of project's manageable. I walk away from everything that the scope of the scope of project is unmanageable because I can't do anything with it.
Mm.
I mean, if you're trying to shoot a film in the middle of the ocean, no,
Yeah.
I can't do this. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know. To me, that scope of project is unmanageable.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Because of your current skill set now, or
well,
just
just
because?
because, like, I mean, think about making a film in the middle of the ocean.
That
I mean,
sucks. I wouldn't want to do that.
yeah, I mean, if it's like a documentary and you have certain understandings of it, like we're gonna shoot only natural light, like okay, maybe, because now the scope of project is shrinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you want to shoot some narrative out there, like Kevin, or
I was gonna say Fitzcarraldo.
Waterworld. I'm trying to just think of the guy who made Waterworld. I don't the guy from Dances with Wolves, Kevin Costner.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he like went out there and made like actually in the middle of the ocean. And the process of doing this was awful.
Yeah.
Like they were boating out actors, and then it was like 3 hours, and then when they got there, like I have to use the bathroom, and then boat them back. And it's like, what do we do? Like this
Yeah.
is scope of project is unmanageable.
Yeah, that's why I
Like,
was
it's
bringing
silly.
up Fitzcarraldo, where they just have you heard of that with
No.
Werner Herzog? Do you know?
Yeah, I
Werner
know
Herzog?
Werner. Yeah.
Yeah. There's Fitzcarraldo's where they're trying to like tell the story of
Right.
people that
Okay.
are trying to get this boat over a mountain
Yeah.
and how many people died, and then during the filming of it, a bunch of people died.
Yeah.
And it was just like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Or Apocalypse Now. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Like, there's no constraints here, and I don't think that's a good thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's just a movie. Like it's not.
Right.
In no circumstances like loss of life like ever like you don't ever weigh that against the like making this like oh yeah but if we got the shot if there's even a remote chance like you just don't do it.
Yeah.
Like I don't screw around with anything even remotely like I'll shut down a whole production. I don't care. Like
Yeah.
I don't play with that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
silly. It's actually silly.
Yeah.
Like you would feel awful for the rest of your life if you actually let another human being get injured in pursuit of whatever arbitrary like it's so
because you're
silly.
trying to make a doodle. You
It's
know what I
so
mean?
silly.
You're making a moving doodle, and somebody
it's
broke
so
their
silly.
leg.
Yeah, it's so silly.
It is
Yeah,
wild.
I don't mess with that.
Yeah, but what's funny is I don't know if you've ever felt this where you get caught up in the moment in a film and you're willing to just do anything. There's a point where I was like shooting, and this is why I'm kind of glad there's a union, right?
Yeah.
Because like there's a moment where we need to get the shot, we need to get it now.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't have a belt. I'm like, you can have my belt. I'm like, you can just take anything from me. Like
Right.
I'll do whatever. We need to get it done.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some irony in it. I mean, the adrenaline takes over, but I'm a big believer in prep, and
Right, of course.
I don't believe it should get to that point. I mean, things come
Right.
up. Inevitably, things come up.
Sure.
It rain. You can plan for 7 months, and then it rains the day you go to shoot. I mean, that stuff happens. But if you don't have some sort of contingency or backup plan and the ability to pivot,
Yeah.
you got to go back to the drawing board. There's just no real reason for stuff of that caliber to like take hold. I think.
Yeah.
I think you should have the ability to like to pivot to make an audible real fast. Like, okay, well, if we can't do this because of X, Y, and Z, we can do this, and it still serves the story, and we don't do anything crazy that's like gonna be in the
Then we
newspaper.
don't have to. We don't have to have anybody break their legs.
Yeah,
Or,
yeah.
Get injured.
There's
in
just
any
no
way.
reason.
Yeah.
It really isn't. And again, like, if you're making, there's a lot of money on the line. Like, again, it shouldn't happen, especially if there's money on the line. But especially for us who have no money, and it's like, do not risk anybody's safety for like,
$0.
Yeah, and like you might get into one local festival, like insane,
Yeah.
actually insane. And
Right.
and most of the time, the people who do that stuff, you just don't work with, or you hear a story about it, and you're like, okay, yeah, just stay clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. We're doing our festival run too, and this could be a whole other podcast. But like the festival run is like a part. It's like a fourth of the creative project.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I had no idea what I was getting into because you start with the writing and then pre-production. That's kind of the first act.
Right.
And then the actual production in itself, while it is probably the shortest amount of time, is the most involved. And, I consider that the second act. And then the third act is post.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, yeah. And then even after post, you got to keep working.
Marketing, networking, you want to get feedback as well because you want to see what people think so that when you make your next film,
you can take those notes into account.
You can take those notes or those perceptions because sometimes you'll make something be like, okay, I want somebody to look at this red ball. And then when they watch it, everybody doesn't look at the red ball. You're like, why didn't I? The whole point is for them to look at the red ball and nobody looked at the red ball.
Yeah.
Why did that happen? How do I avoid that?
Yeah.
Little things, subtle storytelling that like each time you get really, really good at.
Right.
And then by the time you make 6, 7, 8, 9 films, you should be really good by that point and be able to do a lot of what you wanted to do when you were younger.
Sure.
you should be able to do by then.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what's you're building the experience so that way it can match your vision. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Experience, portfolio, network. Because again, like if you start off and your first script idea is you want to do a 10-minute one shot,
Mm.
and you try it and it's awful and it doesn't work, and you're like, dang it,
Yeah.
I really want to tell a story. But then 6 years later, you meet a Steadicam operator. You meet, first ACs who can actually pull focus on this. You meet
Yeah.
some guy who has a perfect location. And then all of a sudden that project feels much more attainable than it did when you started out.
Yeah.
A lot more of the questions about how do I do this get answered, or you have somebody who can. Because most of the time that's really what it is somebody else has the answer for you. You just
Yeah.
haven't met them yet.
Right. Yeah.
And there's lots of people who have lots of answers for lots of different things. And
Yeah.
just by doing and meeting and completing projects, you find them.
Yeah.
And then things start to build from there.
Yeah. No, that's great.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. I talked to this filmmaker who, he's going for $1 million budget right now, something kind of big, right? And he said the biggest jump from being a ground floor filmmaker to that next level was literally just meeting a mentor, somebody that was willing to share their knowledge and kind of help them along the way. So
Yep.
it's just, I mean, there's, when people say it's not about what you know, it's who you know.
It's always
But when you hear that and you're kind of naive on the topic, you're like, oh, so I need to know a famous person so they can kind of like hook me up. It's like, no, I mean, kind of, but but also it's like just knowing somebody who knows what you want to do. You know what I mean? It's like it doesn't have to be somebody that can hook it up.
No,
it's somebody. It could just be somebody that could tell you how to do it.
Yeah, and there's like immense levels to filmmaking. I mean, there's the indie scene, which was kind of what we're familiar with. There's also like a regional scene too, like we only work Philly area. But then there's also New York, and there's also LA and Atlanta, and those markets are twice as big, and things are happening there. And then like I remember in school we had this guy come who was a career second AD, so nothing glamorous at all.
Right.
But he made 6 figures every year, retired with millions of dollars, and worked on like all these crazy movies. And it's like, oh, like and most of his career was just B movies.
Wow.
Like he worked on like Rambo First Blood maybe, and then after that like just did B movies.
Yeah.
But was very successful and enjoyed it. And there's
that's kind of my goal is like if I can make like
that's all.
like,
That's my only goal.
yeah,
Is
like
like
a
if I can
livable wage.
survive,
Yeah.
save some money, make some investments,
Yeah. And then
That's
do
it.
the stuff that I want to
and
do.
also do the stuff that. And that's kind of what I was saying earlier, that if I went to big cities, like I might be working on big movies or whatever, big stars, but I don't know if I would actually enjoy it. I don't know. And so at least now, even if nobody sees my films, at least I'm making them and I'm enjoying the process, and I'm making a little bit of money along the way, and I'm enjoying life, which feels much more important than, even if I never work on a big Marvel movie, even if I never do any of the things I thought I was going to do when I was 18 years old, I'm fine where I am now.
Yeah.
And everybody's path is very unique, which is something that I think, I'm sure it's not totally unique to film, but it is consistent in film. Like everybody's path is different, and there is no template for success. I definitely think there's some things that you should do that would, put you in the right direction, but there's no like do this and this and this, and you will be this by 35.
Right.
There's
you really
people
have
who
to carve out.
there's a lot of, especially like in the digital ad age, like 2000 to 2015. There's lots of guys who were just photographers or just like marketing managers who were privy to video, and then just like made the jump and just started DPing and are like really good at it now. And you're like, oh, what the heck? Like what?
Yeah.
You would think that would never work, but it does work. And if they had listened to a bunch of people say, oh, you can never do that. Like you have to first AC, and then you have to go to operator, and then you have to go to B cam, and then you have to go. No, dude, you could literally just do whatever.
Yeah. Again, I mean, and that again kind of applies to you have to go to film school, and then you have to like work on a couple.
There is no you have tos.
Yeah, right.
There's some strongly suggests, but there's no you have tos. And again, too, like with the world changing so much, I mean, gear is cheaper. More people are making films because it's accessible. The whole process, pre-production. There's pre-production tools, production. There's a lot of skilled people who are either tight on work or really talented, and there's just a big pool of talented people. So you can get some of these people to like do your projects.
Yeah.
Like we went and did a film in New Orleans, and the people we had helping us were like incredibly talented, like worked big movies and huge stuff that like I've never worked on. And they were here working for me. And I was like, what? How did this happen? Like, they worked on like American Horror Story and, multiple seasons and movies. And
And
all sorts of stuff.
it comes back to what you're saying is like people like especially artists they just want to do
Yeah,
it's that's what's so unique about it is
yeah,
that they just love the work.
yeah, and yeah, in
That's
some weird sadistic way, it's
it's
like they
some
actually
weird
enjoy it.
yeah,
Like,
I want to be on set for 12 hours a day,
yeah,
you
like,
know what I mean?
it
Sometimes.
sounds fun. And
Yeah.
most of the time, I actually do have fun. I mean, if the people, and
Right.
this is the other half, like just be a good person and someone
Yeah.
that's enjoyable with.
Yeah.
Because if you can find crews like that, 12 hours goes by really
For
fast.
sure.
And then most of the time, it just feels like you're out
You're
having
hanging out
fun.
with the
Yeah.
boy. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
having a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I definitely
anybody
agree.
who starts to like hostily take over that, I'm
Mm.
like, I just not something I want to work with. And
Yeah.
I have that freedom, which is really nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's like again, that may work if you have a a lot of money and you're
Mhm.
established and like you
Yeah.
need to do it that way. But I don't want to do it that way. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like I'd
Right.
rather have fun.
Yeah. I would much rather have
We're
fun. Like,
making doodles. We're making
yeah.
movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It should be fun. I mean,
Yeah.
everything should be fun.
Yeah. And I think that also comes across in the final product a lot of the time too. It's
Yeah.
like how much fun like if the actors especially is like you could tell if they're not having a good time.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Uh,
some people just take things way too serious and,
yeah.
um, like they're like, oh, I'm gonna be the next Spielberg. You're like, no, you're not. You have a long way to go before you're gonna be the next Spielberg. And
Yeah.
you're not doing it right now when you're 22. Like, it's
Yeah.
gonna take a long time. And,
Right. So yeah, I think I'm glad to hear that you're in a good spot and you have
mm,
that freedom. What are your your next projects, next goals? What are your you looking forward? What are you trying to do?
yeah, I'm trying to get back to some of my social content because I do enjoy I do enjoy teaching and talking about filmmaking and fostering a community.
Right.
It's just hard to do it. Basically, it's just
Well,
hard to
yeah.
find that consistency and
Sounds
keep
like it
doing it.
comes back to your love for academia too.
Yeah, I think it's actually like just in my blood.
Yeah.
On my dad's side, both of his parents were teachers,
Hmm.
and my grandfather's brothers, I think, were both teachers.
Wow.
I
Okay.
think it's just
So
part of
you
our.
have
My
a
brother's
natural
currently teaching
affinity.
in some
Okay.
capacity.
Sure.
I don't know. Yeah, I think I don't know. It's just in our blood. Um, and I'm trying to shoot a lot more because now I have all this new knowledge, right? Like I left film school. It's like, oh, I have a very rudimentary understanding of shooting and lighting. Now I have a really high understanding of lighting and film logistics of like how things actually move, time it takes, the resources you need. And now I'm trying to go back to the other half, like, okay, how do I improve my visual storytelling? How do I improve my film language? How do I
Mm.
make better films that I always watch? And I'm like, I wish I could do that. Like, why can't I do that?
Yeah.
So I'm still trying to find that secret sauce.
Right.
Um, and so that's just going to come from volume and just making films and seeing it all the way through.
Yeah.
Um, it's making an image look good is very easy to do.
Mm.
Making multiple images in one scene look good, very hard to do.
Mm.
Making multiple scenes look good throughout the course of a movie with some level of consistency, very hard to do.
Yeah.
So still a lot to learn.
Sure.
But yeah, I just got to chip away, I think, so I can manage it.
Okay.
I think some people
Cool.
try to take big chunks. It's like, dude, it's so much to deal with.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
is
So
there,
yeah. So you're still now you're taking on the you're still in that learning, right? You're still trying to learn
Oh,
and like
yeah.
get and we're always gonna be
We
learning.
always,
We're
yeah.
always
That's
gonna be
at least
learning.
that should be a perspective.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But then trying to use some of the stuff that you have learned experience wise. I think also the idea of talking about filmmaking, teaching filmmaking, trying to do that social content.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's there's a phrase where it's like you learn more when you teach it, right?
Right.
Like, that's where you get a lot out. So yeah, those all sound like great options for you
Yeah,
right
and
now.
that's like part of the medium's evolving.
Yeah.
Like there is, I don't have that many followers, and I'm not that successful, but I've been
Hey, me
around
neither.
people who have been pretty successful and have figured it out, and yeah, it's like people are interested in the process, and
Yeah.
because it's changing and it's becoming more accessible, it looks different. And 10 years ago, being some social media influencer would be like taboo, or you would have this certain perspective of like the work you do, but I think that's starting to like slowly slip, and there's lots
Hmm.
of really really talented people who happen to also be YouTube creators, they happen to be influencers, they happen to make content, but it doesn't mean that they only do a certain level of work, or they'll never do big budget stuff, or And you can see it because
The
there's
lines are
people.
starting to get blurred.
Yeah, you can see like Roger Deakins has a podcast now where he's
Yeah.
really kind of leaking a lot of information. He's always had a forum where you can get kind of information directly for him. But Shane Holbert, who has Filmmaker Academy,
Yeah.
is really starting to like kind of break those lines that for a
Wow.
long time are really hard to get access to.
Yeah.
He's the dude who shot like Need for Speed and
Wow.
TV show, like big TV shows and big movies for a long time. He's really
Wow.
talented, and yeah, he's like got all his creators coming online, and they're talking about stuff very much in like a social media influencer, content creator type of way, and it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, those lines are changing, and
Yeah.
like I could sit back and be like, no, I want to make sure everybody sees me as an artist.
That's
and I
what
don't
I'm
want,
saying.
but
I'm
I wouldn't
glad
be part of the
you're-
process that's
yeah.
actively happening and
Right.
changing, and it's actually been pretty successful. I got a lot of brand partnerships and deals last year, and repertoire with people and people at companies that I can reach out to and be like, hey, I'm trying to source X, Y, and Z. I'm looking to can you help me with cutting some a deal here? Can we do some sort of collaboration?
Yeah.
And it actually works out pretty well.
Yeah, no, like I say, it's
Um,
just it's refreshing to hear the other side, because so often in my own mind and from what I've heard, it's like, oh, I don't want to play into the social media
Sure.
game. You know what I
Sure,
mean?
it's totally valid.
And
mean,
yeah, it is valid.
yeah.
Like I get that, but again, it feels it's you're totally right. Like there's these tools and the media is changing. It's becoming a lot
right.
more
And like
acceptable.
and 10 years ago, I've been trying to like make content for years. I always said, oh, I'll do it. If at any point I just started, I'd be very successful now.
Yeah.
Like I would have everything
Well-
that had happened and went over, twice as many people started making content,
Yeah.
twice as many people started consuming content. Brands were coming out of the woodwork making very, very affordable and great products that, for a long time used to cost thousands and thousands of dollars. Now it's like you can go get a really incredible camera for $1,500 that
Yeah.
gives you stuff that would have cost $30,000 only 10 years ago.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's the reality that we live in. And now there's, all these budget cinema lens options that are very like per format a dollar, like extremely valuable. They cost a couple $1,000s, but again, like the performance and value you get out of that
Yeah.
is like negligible. And there's so many of them that, there's demo units being sent out. You can get loaners of these things. You can use them on your projects and improve the quality of your stuff at no cost to you just by like being online.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
which like is just part of the process that's happening now.
Yeah.
And so you always think like it'll get saturated, but
It hasn't yet.
it hasn't yet.
And it's continuing to grow.
More people keep getting online, and like you got to figure for every one creator or influencer, there's 200 people that are only consumers
Oh wow.
that
Yeah.
don't do any form of, so they're consuming your content, they're consuming your buddy's content, they're consuming somebody in a different market's content, and they're
Yeah.
doing it all at once.
Yeah. Dude, this is so refreshing because I've had this podcast for like 5
Right.
years. You know what I mean? And it's definitely not gotten where I thought it could go.
Right.
But the I would say the improvement has come in the content. It's the lighting even. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right,
Has
yeah.
changed the audio, and even my interview skills and stuff like that.
Right.
So I've seen the progress that way, but it is, after doing it for 5 years, is a little disheartening
Sure.
to continue to not be at a level that I want to be at. Which honestly has helped me just like this is the fun part for me, just having this
Right.
conversation,
Yeah.
right?
And you're learning the
Yeah.
whole time,
Yeah,
both
the whole
both on
time.
that side, both personally, and so there's always
Right.
going to be a value to it, and
Yeah.
that part's something that like we define for ourselves. So just throw yourself a bone, like
Yeah.
I'm learning. This is a process. I'm still young. Like
Sure.
there's plenty of room for this to grow. There's plenty of room for everything else to grow.
Yeah.
If you go on the internet and you look and like, oh man, everybody else is succeeding. Oh, here's another new podcast that just out of nowhere has millions of listeners.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be very
It's gonna be
drowning.
tough,
It's gonna be very
right.
daunting, but there's plenty of room. I mean, again, I don't know what the statistics are, but I wouldn't even be surprised if it was for every one influencer, it's 500 people who consume that.
Yeah.
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 I wouldn't be surprised if it was that
Right.
level of ratio. And a lot
And
of
it's only
time-
getting bigger.
Yeah, and it's only getting bigger. And like, if you just do what you like and you have a little bit of constructive criticism towards yourself, towards growing, towards changing, improving, your lights, buying nicer lights, or going to a studio, or working out a connection with somebody at a studio, something like that, just to keep scaling. That all takes time, though.
Sure.
Because maybe you don't have the answer now, but in 3 months, you work on a movie and there's like guys like, oh yeah, we have a studio. It's kind of slow nowadays. Like if you want to come in on Fridays from 6 to 8, totally yours.
Yeah.
You don't know when that stuff will happen.
Right.
And I always tell people it's an opportunist game. Like you're just looking for opportunities, and you don't know where those opportunities will come from.
Mm.
So if you sit at home and you just interact with people on social media, you're opening opportunities that way. But if that's the only way you're doing it, you're going to have very few opportunities compared to if you're doing that and you go to your local meetups and you
Yeah.
go to film festivals
Right.
and you work on some projects for free. Now you have 5 places
Yeah.
that all have the potential to open many doors. And then at some point, all of those will happen at the same time.
Yeah.
And everybody will be calling you to do something. Everybody will want you to come out and do
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And so it's really an opportunist game in that way. And then you're just trying to scale those opportunities. So then you're looking
Yeah.
for more paid opportunities. You're looking for business partners. You're looking for, you go
Investors.
you go straight to brands. Or you go straight to whatever. And you're like, I do X, Y, and Z. I have a business in South Jersey. I'm trying to upgrade to this new camera. Like, can you, help me? Is there any opportunities? Zero financing. Like, there's lots of ways to do these things that people just aren't totally privy to. And it's like,
Yeah. And again, this is part of just like who you know, right? It's like you see, had never. I mean, I'd thought about the ideas
Right.
of where to get the opportunities.
Yeah,
but
and the people, like, they say who you know. It's not like built in. It's not like, oh, my dad's brother is head of studios at ABC. It's who you know can develop over time.
Yeah.
And that's a byproduct of your own determination or your own like volition to get out and do stuff.
Yeah.
That's where you get like, oh, I most of the stuff I know is like, oh, I met this guy doing whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
like I never.
Dude, I've even just started reaching out to people that I follow that are in the area and be like,
That's
hey, you
pretty
want
much all I
to
do,
meet up to
yeah.
get coffee or something?
Yeah, anybody who does work that I like,
Yeah.
or I would like to be on those things. Like, yeah, like I do this. Is there any room, any opportunity? Like, yeah, you want to meet for coffee? Like, those things work, and most people are really receptive to it.
Yeah.
Even people who are really busy, be like, oh, they'll never have time for me. They might have tons of time for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not doing anything for 3 weeks. Like,
Yeah.
what is, want to go to a water park? Like, I don't know. Like, it's like all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. I love it. I love that.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably a good place to wrap up. Do you want to, plug your Instagram website, whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I'm found everywhere as Maxwell Collins DP.
Maxwell Collins DP.
Pretty much anywhere that. Yep, pretty much anywhere.
Okay.
That website is also that. Like, it's
Cool. Yeah, I'll put that in the bio and the link and everything. I'll give you a little fist bump. Appreciate you for coming out.
Absolutely.
It was a good conversation.
Yeah, it was fun.
All right, that's a wrap.
Cool.